Are joining us today. Thank you for joining the Back to School, Back to Church Special Needs Ministry webinar. I am Carrie Chang and part of the team here at Nathaniel's Hope. And on one of these boxes to my left or right is Marie Cook, our Executive Director and co-founder of Nathaniel's Hope. So I'm going to turn it over to her to get started. We're going to use this chat a lot. So if you have questions along the way, put that in there. And at the end, we'll definitely have some time for Q&A.
Okay, thanks, Carrie. Well, thanks so much for joining us. We're very happy to spend this time with you, and I hope it's going to be helpful for you. We're kind of passionate about helping to equip you to minister to families impacted by disability. And so if it's okay, I'm just going to ask the Lord his presence as we begin today. Father, we just thank you so much for your faithfulness, Lord. I thank you for my friends today that are, God, just wanting to learn more about how to get equipped to minister to all of your kids, Father. And I pray today that this would be a helpful time as we kind of talk about ways to get equipped when families show up at church, Father. So I pray that you'd be with us in this time. We commit it to you, and thank you just for your presence. In Jesus' name we pray. And everyone said, amen. I could almost hear the amens there. Okay, well, I am going to go ahead and share my screen here. This is always the intimidating part, trying to get my screen going with you, but we're very excited. Okay, I think I'm good now. I just want to change it to there. Perfect. Now I think we're good. We want to always be helpful to equip churches to minister to families impacted by disability. We got to think, we're going back to school, we're going back to church, hopefully. I know the pandemic has been a really hard season for a lot of people, but especially families impacted by disability. This community was hit hard and has been a lot in isolation, lost a lot of resources. And so as we're able to kind of get better equipped, we can really make an impact as a church to be Jesus' hands and feet to this community. So I'm excited about spending this time with you and kind of helping with the equipping today. We are with Nathaniel's Hope. If you don't know much about us, Nathaniel's Hope, we are dedicated to celebrating kids with special needs, who we like to call our VIPs because we hate the word disabled and handicapped. And we also, and it's kind of included all ages. We started with children, but now we kind of expanded to all ages because our kids have grown up and they found community with us and our programs. And so we've not wanted to throw them out, but to continue to expand our services to serve all ages. And one of our goals is to kind of, cheer on these families as they're on their journey, but also to educate and equip the community, but particularly the local church, because we feel like the local church can make such a difference. And so thanks for being with us today. I want to go ahead and just tell you briefly what made me passionate about this community. This is Nathaniel. Nathaniel is our third child, our first son, and he kind of brought us into the whole world of disability. And if it's okay, I'm just going to roll a short video to kind of tell you our story and how I kind of began in this whole community.
Hi, we're Tim and Marie Cook, Nathaniel's mom and dad, and we're here to tell you about our journey with Nathaniel.
Our journey began with our son on June 6, 1997. And our son's name is Nathaniel Timothy Cook, which actually means treasured gift from God. He was our third child. We had two daughters, a 3-year-old who is Ashley and a 5-year-old who is Brianna. And immediately we were thrust into caring for our little boy at Arnold Palmer Hospital.
He spent the first 89 days of his life just fighting for his life. And I remember it was such a hard, trying time to try and raise our two daughters while having a son that we were fighting for his life every day.
And after 89 days, we took him home, not to a normal nursery, but actually to a small hospital room that had a heart monitor and a SAT monitor, and he was on oxygen. He was on IV. He had a feeding tube. And Marie found herself at a place of caring for him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
We actually consider ourselves RPs, registered parents, because we had to really equip ourselves to care for a child that had multiple medical needs.
And actually caring for our son, it actually consumed our lives. It was our whole life evolved around caring for our son. I told the people I worked with at Regal Boats here in Orlando that I had these 5 F's. I have faith, family, friends, finances and flexibility, these 5 F's, and we were barely making. And I said at the time, I don't know how people that only have 2 F's or 3 F's, how can they possibly make it when we're barely making it with these 5 F's?
Oftentimes families are in survival mode, just taking everything it takes in you just to care for your child, just to get through the day. And so we became part of that community. It was really tough.
He had numerous surgeries in his life, actually more than 7 of them, but 3 of them were for craniosynostosis. And that 2 of them we had here in Orlando, and then we took him to Dallas, Texas for a 3rd. And the surgery went well, but he ended up getting pneumonia. And during the course of that time in the hospital, there's a nurse that's standing over our son's bed, and she's weeping. And she says, there's just something about this boy. There's just something about this boy. And as we begin to talk, we find that she's of like faith. And she says, I don't normally do this, but can I pray for you? And we said, of course, we're spiritually bankrupt, physically bankrupt, emotionally bankrupt, after just fighting for our son's life again, 11 days in Dallas. And as she prays, she didn't pray a typical prayer. She prayed that my son's purpose would be fulfilled. We thought kind of an odd prayer because he never walked or talked or ate with his mouth, but she prayed that his purpose would be fulfilled.
A year later, unexpectedly, without our permission, he had a change of address from earth to heaven when he passed away in my arms. And we realized at that point that that wasn't the end, but it was the beginning, that God wanted us to steward our whole journey with Nathaniel. Because from the time that we found out we had a child with special needs to the time that God took him home, it was a journey, an unanticipated journey, a path that we never expected.
There's a paraphrase quote by author, philosopher named Soren Kierkegaard that says, we live life forward, but we understand life backwards. We live life forward, but we understand life backwards. And so we were living life forward for 4.5 years. And now, after his death, we realized that we needed to take that which we learned and apply it to life. And we realized that we needed to do that by starting a ministry to cheer on families that only have 2 F's or 3 F's. And on June 6, 2002, on Nathaniel's birthday, we dedicated a ministry called Nathaniel's Hope.
So Nathaniel's
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it off there. If you want to see the rest of the video, it is on our website at nathanielshope.org. But, that's our story. And that's, kind of how I got into this whole world. But, there's over 20 million kids out there that have some kind of story, maybe not completely like Nathaniel's story, but they're out there. And it's an interesting fact to note that only 10% of families impacted by disability attend church. So think about that. If only 10% of families impacted by disability attend church, that means 90% don't. And so we have a great opportunity to get ready and to kind of welcome these families in who have had, a hard road, who are sometimes questioning where God is in their life. They've been rejected by the church sometimes, and they just, they want a normal life like everybody else. And so the great news is that there's something we can do about it to welcome these families in and to get ready to do that. So as we get ready for a new year, a new school year, and, if you're a parent, you've been in that process of preparing and getting things ready and all that. The same thing we're going to take a look at is getting ready for the new year right now, and preparing as families may begin to come back to church now. So my question is, how do families that have kids with special needs or abilities know that they're welcome in your church? I mean, are you just kind of at a place that you're like, well, if they show up, I'll figure it out? Or are you thinking about the fact that 1 out of 10 kids under the age of 14 has a disability? That means at some point they're going to be showing up, whether it's a notable, visible disability or not. They're going to show up on your doorstep, but even so, if you are kind of saying, well, yeah, kids with special needs are welcome. Well, how are you telling them that they're welcome? So first of all, I would suggest that that one of the ways that you can tell them is to communicate that these VIP kids are welcome. If I kind of use the term VIP kids, it just kind of slips off my my tongue. That's what I call kids with disabilities, VIP kids, that they are welcome. What are you doing? So this is a website that, kind of says here, we're passionate about serving every child who walks through Mosaic's doors. Our hopes are to meet the needs of kids, not regardless of their story, but with their story in mind. And so they're communicating that kids with all abilities are welcome in their church. But just a simple communication on your website, or whether it's in printed communication that goes out from your church or anything like that, to just make that little effort to say, you know what, you're welcome here. And it doesn't mean that you have to have everything figured out, but that you are welcoming all kids into your ministry. It'll really make a huge difference. So, we want to begin to set out the welcome mat, and let these families know, not just let them stumble in, but let them know we want you to be part of our family, our church family. So what does that begin to look like? Well, we understand the families that are out there. We know that the families are in a community. It's important to have a plan. So, you can have the no plan, and that's when they show up and you're like, what do I do? And end up throwing them in a nursery because, that's where it's kind of a catch-all place to include kids in. Or you can really think about the fact that statistic I said, 1 out of 10 kids under the age of 14 may have some kind of disability. Now, listen, when you think about disability or special needs, it could be kids that have a physical disability, a cognitive disability, developmental. Maybe it's something that's hidden, like they look typical on the outside, but they may have just some kind of special need. They may have learning disabilities. They may have medical disabilities. They may be medically fragile. They might have a life-threatening illness. They may have impacted by trauma. I mean, the list can go on and on, but do you have a plan when these families show up and say, hey, I have a kid that has some unique needs? What is the plan when they first show up at your church? Do the church, the greeters, do they even know how to direct these families, or do they say, well, I don't think we have a program for kids like yours, or do they know to say, hey, we are so glad that you're here, and let me direct you to our children's ministry, and they will take care of you there. And when they get to the children's department, what happens there? That person who's receiving them on the end, do they have a welcome plan? Or do they just say, Sam, I don't know what to do. We have a kid here that where should we place them, or do you have a plan that you say, hey, we're so glad that you're here, let's go ahead and maybe have an intake form. So first of all, having an intake form is key, and probably your children's departments do have an intake form of some kind to get basic information, at least of the child's name and contact information, maybe their age, a few things. But just a little trick, or sometimes parents, if they have a hidden disability, they may not tell you that their child has some kind of unique needs because they may have had an experience before that when a church found out, they just were not welcome to be there. And so they may be reluctant to share that, or a lot of parents want their kids to be like anybody else. And so in order to do that, they want their kid to be treated like anybody else and not to necessarily just be put in that special room automatically because they have some special abilities or unique needs. But two of the things you can ask that will help filter them out is, first of all, does your child have an IEP? An IEP within the public school system is called an individual education plan. Some of you may know that already. And if they have some unique needs, the school is kind of working on special provisions and special accommodations to help them be successful within the school setting. So you don't need to know the details of that, but your little clue is if they say yes, they do, then you know that most likely this child is going to need some kind of special accommodation. So you can kind of file that information away as just a point. It's a non-threatening way, because sometimes if you just specifically ask, does your child have a special need? Does your child have a disability? That can be very intimidating, or it may, throw the parent off in a defense mode and all, but that's just a gentle way of kind of asking that. And the second question you can ask, does your child need special accommodations? And that's just, basically like if they're hearing impaired, they may say, yeah, my child has a problem hearing, so they might need some provisions for that, or they might get unsettled if it gets too noisy, but it just gives them a chance to kind of explain a little bit. Now, granted, they may not give you a lot of detail, but if a parent responds to either one of these two questions, then you're going to have the opportunity to follow up with those families, following to make a difference, to find out more information following that Sunday. But at the moment, you've got to figure it out how to pull this together when the families first show up. So I know it's not always easy to have this, but having a person on standby to be a buddy, maybe you have their number, you're texting them, they're on call that morning to be that standby buddy. So if a child comes in that might need some special accommodations, they can kind of shadow them or be their buddy for that morning and kind of help them with whatever unique needs they may have that morning. So it's always a good thing. And this person may not be called upon every week, but just having them kind of in the wings, or it might be one of your volunteers that you're prepared to kind of pull out of whatever their rotation is to kind of have them fill in that spot. But, if you have a child that maybe might have some unique needs, you're going to need some extra support for the teachers or for the classroom setting that they're in. And they're just going to need a little extra attention. So that's a way to get that accomplished, So what if you have one of these mornings that everything is going wrong and you are just not equipped at that moment? So the thing I want to just really enforce is to never tell the parent, hey, we just aren't able to do this. We just can't have you here. We're not trained. We're not equipped. I mean, who's really equipped? When I had my son, Nathaniel, I had been a youth pastor for 10 years and I worked with, all kinds of kids and young people for 10 years. And when my son was born, I was not equipped. He did not come with a manual. He didn't come with a guide of here's how you take care of him. But it was something that I grew into and learned as I spent time with him. I learned how to care for him. So in that time, over the time, you can get equipped to take care of any child and minister to them. But at that very moment, if everything is all going wrong that morning, the one thing I would recommend, if it fits within your church's policies to allow a visitor to be in there, is ask the parent if they'd like to join in and just sit in for that morning, and you can say, hey, this morning we are just not equipped, but we really want you to be here and we want to have the accommodations that your child needs. But for this morning, would you just like to sit in with Johnny and just kind of learn about what we do here, and give them that option, but don't just shut them down and say, sorry, we don't take care of kids like that. The church down the street has a really good room that they can go to, but you want to, just be as accommodated as you can. And then following that meeting, on that Sunday, is meet with the parent, Now, whether or not you had any direct conversation with them, but if you saw on the form, the intake form, that my child has an IEP or needs special accommodations, your next move should be to give that parent a call and say, hey, I'm so happy that Johnny was with us this Sunday and I want to learn more. Can we chat a little bit, and whether you go to their home or whether you meet for coffee or they come to church to meet with you to learn more, take the time to get to know about their child and get to know their story, because we're afraid of what we don't know. And so the more we get to know, the more we'll be comfortable in that ministry position. And I can tell you that your parent can be your best trainer, your best coach in ministering to this community of kids. So I just want to encourage you, to don't put it off. I know you could have a big ministry and you have lots of families that are there, but this community is one that you can't do what you do with other kids to be equipped, and be successful in it. So meet with the parent, and then get to know the child, not just the disability. If they have Down syndrome, yes, it's good to know a little bit about Down syndrome. It's good to know about autism. But that child is not a label. They are not autism. They are not Down syndrome. They are a child of God. And just like any other child, they are primarily a child who happens to have autism, who happens to have Down syndrome, but they are a child with a soul. There is no disabled soul that God has created. So get to know the kids, get to know who they are, learn about them, spend time with them. When I youth pastored many years, I would kind of put out a little form and invite myself to people's homes to invite me for dinner, not because I didn't like to cook. I love to cook, or didn't want to cook, but I wanted to get to know the young people that I was working with. So I'd say, hey, you can invite me over for dinner, or I would, go to the schools to visit with the kids over lunch to enter into their world. But those times were probably some of the most beneficial times for me to get to know the young people that I was working with. And so it's the same thing, getting to know the child and not the disability, and just be creative about ways that you can do that. And then you really need to build a team, as God brings in the kids one by one, you got to build a team. You can't just say, well, you know what, Susie there, Susie has a disability and her mom knows how to care for those kids. So we should ask her to come and just kind of build the ministry here. Susie's mom needs to be in church receiving the hope of Christ, and she may be part of a team, but it's going to take a team. It's going to take a village to really to care for the child, depending on what the need is, because you really got to look at every child one by one. And sometimes when you're thinking about welcoming kids in, you think, well, I've got to have a special needs room, and I don't have a special needs room, and therefore we can't accept kids to come in. Can I tell you something? There are so many disabilities out there and so many unique kids that God has made that you can't possibly get equipped to for all the kids that God could bring in or who he's going to bring in. I mean, you could take time to build a whole facility or a room that is accommodated to a child with a disability, a physical disability, just to find out that God never sends a child with a physical disability to your church, but the best thing to do is begin just to build your team and to focus on what the needs of every individual child is, and when your team doesn't feel equipped, it's our responsibility to equip our team, whether that's having the parent come in and talk about their child, or you kind of equip the team. But, sometimes you may not feel equipped. You just don't feel equipped. You're like, this is above my pay grade. I wasn't trained in this. And at that time, you can find resourceful pros to help if help is needed. Sometimes you'll find in the church that you may have a special ed teacher, or you may have a therapist or somebody who works within this community. And then you find like they just don't want to volunteer on Sunday. Well, it can be that they're just really burned out because they do it every day, but they can be resourceful to you to be a trainer, or they can help you kind of figure things out for specific kids about a plan for them. Just like, we have the IEP in the school system, the school kind of says individual education plan. You can have a spiritual educational plan for every child and figure out what do they need? How do we help them understand the love of Jesus, and that can look different from every child. But your professionals are out there and they can be used. And maybe you would find that they're not in your church. And if they're not in their church, there's a lot of great organizations out there. If kids have autism, you can reach out to one of the autism groups in your area or disability specific organizations in your area to come in and just kind of equip the people who are going to be around the kids. But again, your parent is often your best coach for this. And I want to encourage you not to treat these kids any different. So, most moms and dads want their kids to be treated like every other thing. So I just want to talk about, I'm not really talking about the special needs room today. We'll do another webinar on that and what that can look like. But don't automatically assume that just because a child has some special abilities, special needs, unique needs, that when they show up that they've got to go into the special needs room. And if you don't have the special needs room, well, we just don't have a special needs ministry, Most parents want their kids to be treated like everybody else, and they want their kids to be amongst everybody else. And so when you kind of automatically assume because they have a special needs room, they're going to go in that room. It's not always the best thing. And even what we're teaching our kids as part of the body of Christ, that, like this person, just because they have this label on them, they have to go over here. But if it warrants it, if the child has a behavioral need that, they're going to have aggressive behavior, it could be harmful to themselves or other kids, by all means, we need to have a space that's going to be better accommodating for them. But oftentimes with a buddy, somebody that's going to kind of be helping them and supporting them through the morning worship time, you're able to really kind of specialize and adapt whatever's happening to what their unique needs are. And all kids can benefit from being together like that. So these are just some basic things that you can do to welcome kids in just on a typical Sunday, just to kind of be ready to take that first step. But then you take that first step, and then the question is, well, how can our church get equipped to work with these kids? Like I'm just not sure that that these kids that were kind of ready to do this. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying, Marie, and it makes a lot of sense. But man, it just seems like it's going to take me a long way to get from point A to point B. So I want to talk with you a little bit about, as you think about getting better equipped, back to school, back to church, to reach these families, about a way, if you're thinking about starting a special needs ministry, or you're thinking about, well, we've been doing it, but we haven't been doing it well because we don't know the kids, we don't have volunteers, and I don't know where to start. So I know this is going to come across as being maybe a little bit of a commercial, but Nathaniel's Hope has been around. We're celebrating our 20-year anniversary this year. And by God's grace, we've learned things along the way that we've been able to share with churches. And one of them is this very thing I'm going to talk to you about. And that's about how to maybe start a special needs ministry, or really getting equipped for that. I mean, first of all, we need to pray, right? Because without God, without the Holy Spirit, we're not going to be able to do anything. So, I want to encourage you to submit everything to prayer. And then I want to talk to you about a way that you can recruit volunteers and equip your volunteers to get really comfortable with kids with all kinds of varying abilities for ultimately equipping for Sunday morning. And you're seeing a Kit Kat bar and you're like, Marie, what does a Kit Kat bar have to do with all of that? Well, a Kit Kat bar, if you remember, depending on what your age is, you may remember the old slogan with Kit Kat, give me a break, give me a break, give me a break, give me a piece of that Kit Kat bar. Well, so when I see a Kit Kat bar, I think about a break, right? I think about this community of special needs that desperately needs a break. And, when you think about what the church can do, I know you want to think about Sunday mornings and how am I accommodating and welcoming these families in on Sunday morning, but they have a much greater need that maybe even fitting in on Sunday mornings. And that is, getting a break. During this pandemic, it has brought to surface how desperate this community has been, and how overwhelmed they've been, and how lonely they've been, and how unsupported they've been, and how much really, because we've all been struggling to get through this, unprecedented season, this community of special needs has struggled even more than the typical family or person. So when we think about getting a break, that's really what they need, is to get a break. And so we've created a way to help give families a break, partnering with the local church to provide a program called Buddy Break, which is pretty much a respite care program. If you've ever heard the term respite care, respite is meaning giving somebody a break. It's like a Parents' Day Out program that for once a month for 3 hours, your church opens up its doors to whoever you want. Meaning, if you just want to start with the kids in your church because you want to get to know them and you want to go deeper with these families, great. You can just do the families from your church, but also if you want to turn it into a missions outreach and reach the community that needs help and hope, you can do it using this program or the respite care model. So at a respite care program, so once a month for 3 hours, your church kind of has a fun Parents' Day Out program, and where kids have fun, parents get that break that they need. And you may not think that 3 hours is a lot, but we have multiple stories of families that the parents go to sleep in their car. The moms, single parent moms, will go to sleep in their car while they drop their kids off at a respite program. Or one mom even tells a story of how she went in a hallway of the church, just found a corner, and during the respite program, she just went to sleep, because these parents, though they need a break, they haven't had an opportunity to really get a break. And so they may be nervous about leaving their kids somewhere in that time. So anyway, but one of the greatest things that happens at a respite program, it is the perfect training ground for your volunteers. Because let's face it, on Sunday mornings, you've got an agenda. The church has an agenda to care for the masses. And sometimes these kids with unique needs, can be left behind because you've got so many kids that are there and you're trying to take care of them. And And then you've got kids coming in with unique needs. And how do you train somebody in an hour to know how to be a buddy and care for these kids that have these unique needs? So at a respite care program, these families drop their kids off, and you can your volunteers get to have 3 hours with them and figure out, how to communicate with them, what their trigger points are, how to manage their behavior, learning about them as a child, what they like, what they don't like. One of the, I was just at a respite program this past Saturday, and it was very cool. They were giving an award out to one of the volunteers who had successfully been able to work with a child. This child had come in, and I believe he's in a wheelchair, and was very kind of nonverbal and just didn't even look up, didn't even want to laugh or talk with anybody or communicate with anybody. This volunteer was not a special ed teacher or anything, but just by spending time with them, they eventually were able to make this child smile and even laugh, and just bring joy to them. And it was only because they would have this time every month for 3 hours investing in them and learning about them and taking the time to know them, that they weren't just a disability, but they became a person. And that's where the real turning point is when we can look at these kids as not kids that are disabilities. And how do I work with this disability? And what does autism mean? And what does a kid with autism need? But it's a person that God has created, and they are a person with a soul that God loves very much. And how do I share that love of God? And how do I begin to make them a part of the family and a part of the body, as the Bible talks about, that we're all members of the same body? And there's a transformation that takes place. So at a respite program, these volunteers get to be trained. And the great thing about it is that you can recruit from pools of people that maybe typically aren't in your normal pools. Like oftentimes we look at, 80% of the same people do the same ministry in the church, but we have found that this program actually pulls people out that aren't serving in the church, everywhere from top level executives to senior citizens to high school students to families serving together. It's a great way to recruit volunteers as well, and to kind of fish into a different pool like that. And then it becomes a great community outreach as well. We, as travel has become a little bit harder now, and missions has been harder these last year and a half with the pandemic, we have a missions opportunity right around us. When we know that only 10% of families impacted by disability go to church, what a mission field that we have, that your church can engage in local missions project, and really try and reach the community. So it's kind of cool like that. So I'm looking at the time here. I think I have time. I just want to show you just a quick 2-minute video just to show you how a respite program works, because in your mind you may think, well, how does that work? What does it look like? So I just want to show you a quick video here to show you what it looks like.
What does Buddy Break mean for us? It's time alone. It's time for us to be able to reconnect and go get some things done that we haven't been able to do. And for our children, especially for Elijah, it's an opportunity to come have some fun, be a little independent, and hang out with a buddy that he looks forward to hanging out with and having a wonderful time with.
I've been doing Butter Break for a month or two now, and I've just really been interacting with Elijah in grade school during the band and during worship, and I knew he did Buddy Break, so I wanted to do it with him. And it's a really great experience for both of us just because he's a great kid, and I love being around him.
He looks forward to it so much. Every month they ask, when is Buddy Break? Is Buddy Break this weekend? Is Buddy Break this weekend? Especially Elijah. He also has 2 siblings who are typical who come, and they love to come too. But for Elijah to come and hang out with Ben, he gets to play his guitar. Today he led worship, which was just awesome for him, since that's what he wants to do when he grows up.
My favorite thing is guitar. Ben let me somebody says he passes guitar with me, right? And every time he practices, and he gets better and better every day.
I think that gives him an opportunity to stretch his independence and kind of, show his personality a little bit more.
Here I go.
for Elijah, I know it's just really been a blessing, and he just really, really, really loves it. And like Nick said, for us too, we kind of get a couple hours to go and, you know, have lunch without kids and
Have a
actually talk
conversation.
without interruption. So
Without interruption.
Buddy Break is just an amazing thing, and we love it. And Elijah loves it. Our other boys love it. It's just such a blessing.
So, okay, so sorry. So I cut that off there. I don't have a picture here because I just kind of slipped this in at the last minute if there was time to show you. But the cool thing was right before the pandemic, I went to visit this church, and there were Ben and Elijah 10 years later, and they were still side by side leading worship together at their gathering together. So it's pretty cool as how relationships can be built and all that. So anyway, we work with churches internationally, and we have, you know, it's a turnkey ministry and everything like that. We do online training, and actually we have a training next, actually Thursday, September 2nd. We have a training, it's 6 hours online, and you can join for $49 and watch it. And if you'd say, man, I'm ready to go, then it's $3.99. And then we have on-demand training that's available to you 24/7, and you can watch it as much as you want, even at 2 a.m. like that. So we have some other resources as well. We have virtual buddy breaks. So we've got videos on our YouTube channel that you can feel free to share with your kids. We have a birthday club. These resources are all free. So, you know, regardless or not, whether, you know, we're just suggesting that respite is a great way to minister to the families, and also get your volunteers equipped for Sunday morning. So you can do all these things, and you can have enough volunteers, and you can have volunteers that are comfortable working with kids with disabilities, from that, a pool to draw out of. But we have free resources. We've got a birthday club. So any child in your ministry or in your church or in your life that you can invite them to go to nathanielshope.org. They get a little bear on their, when they first join, and then they get cards every year on their birthday, and other surprises depending on, we just had yesterday in Orlando, we have an agreement with 33 Twisty Treat ice cream places, and they get free ice cream cones and stuff. So anyway, just pass that along. And if kids, you know, go to heaven, we have a Hall of Hope and Remember, like kids who've gone to heaven on what will be their birthday and their homegoing date, to just try and help, you know, families know that their child is not forgotten, they're remembered. And we also have a book that if you want to go further in understanding, it's a story of our son from womb to heaven, and told from a child's perspective to help you understand what it's like being a child with a disability. And it's written very creatively, and as well, what things you could do as a church to help. So, you know, the whole thing, as we talk about, you know, welcoming these families into your church, is to be ready, to know that these families are out here, to have a plan, and to let them know that they're welcome to be there. And I want to encourage you, and you know, we're always here to help you, whether you choose that to go with a respite program or whatever you choose to do. We are always want to be here to help equip you to minister to families. But I would want to encourage you that if you're at a place today and you're thinking, I don't know where to start, I just want to encourage you to just start with one. If God's brought one child your way or two kids your way, just begin getting to know them. Follow the principles we just talked about. I would go to the point of giving the parent a call and talking with them and finding out about what the unique needs of the child, and work together with them to create a plan that's going to be successful for the child and for your ministry as well with that. So, you know, we're out here. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Instagram. We have all kinds of resources available for you, but that's kind of it. And I'm going to stop sharing this. Carrie's going to pull this up in a second, but want to open up for questions. I know that we kind of, you know, talked about some welcoming points at the beginning, but then, you know, when it comes down to it, I know the question is, well, how do I find my volunteers? How do I train them? How do I do it? And so that's what I wanted to talk about, a creative model that works. And we work with churches in 37 states and 3 countries. We know the model works. And so anyway, we just want to help you in any way that is. So open for questions if anybody has any.
If you have any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat. If you don't know where it is, if you're on your PC, you should be able to find that at the bottom. Just go ahead and put them in there. While you are putting those questions in there, we want to give away what a registration to attend our Buddy Break Basic Leadership Training. So I have a little spinning wheel. I'm going to pull up here so we can see who gets that. Are you doing a drum roll, Marie?
Yeah, this is drum roll. So what this means is that we just want to give away one of our trainings. It's a $49 value, and we want to invite you to come sit in and learn a little bit more about respite and about how that works and how you can do it. So one lucky person today is going to get to spend 6 hours with us. Boy, that sounds really fun.
It sounds really fun. Yes. All right. So let me pull this up and we'll go ahead and spin. Let me close that. Here we go.
That's a really cool thing. That means that this is not rigged. This is not a rigged thing. Like it's something that you have done. Linda. Yay, Linda. Where's Linda from?
Linda, I believe she said she was from Georgia.
Georgia, yay, Linda. We will look forward to spending six fun-filled hours with you, I would say. So we're excited about that. I was going to say too, Carrie, is there any parents on here? Are there any parents that you might be on here and you have a child with special needs? Is there anybody on here? If you are, can you just type that in the thing? Amanda, and where are you from, Amanda? Indiana. Okay, Amanda, I want to give you a copy of Hope Lives. Carrie will send this to you, but I just want to give that to you as a present. And thank you for being my hero and for and also just having children and wanting to help other families like yourself that have children. So that's awesome. And so, okay, so Lauren, you have 2 children on a spectrum. Okay, Lauren, I'm going to send you a book as well. Where are you at? See, we just give everything away. Actually, I know it's true. Massachusetts, awesome, Lauren. So I would like to send that to you, and I hope it's an encouragement to you. And the rest of you, I'm sorry, we can't give you all books because we just can't. but we will give you a special price. Can we do the $10 price, Carrie, if anybody wants to get that? What do they need to write in if they go to our website? And
I will be sending an email just to follow up. So I'll put that in the email, the coupon code that you can use to get the book for $10, normally $15. So I am making a note now, but in the meantime, I do see we had one question come through. If anybody else has any questions, please go ahead and put that in there. Fami is asking, how can I be a volunteer and be trained?
Yeah, if you can answer that, Carrie, if you want. Do you want me to answer that?
Sure.
Sure, me or sure you?
I can answer it. Sorry, I was just making my notes so I knew who to send stuff to. So if you are, I think you're in the Orlando area, right, Fami? Yes. So if you're looking to get trained for Buddy Break, there are lots, as a volunteer, there are lots of Buddy Breaks in Central Florida here that you can reach out to, and they do a Buddy Training 101. That's a basic disability training etiquette, and then you can go ahead and volunteer. If you're looking to get trained to do Buddy Break at your church, I can send you some more information on that as well.
Yeah, we have, so one of the things we didn't say is that we have programs all over all over the country, but if you are from Central Florida, we have a lot of programs here in Central Florida that every week that parents could go to a different respite program if they need that. But I would encourage you that we can get you connected to come see a program and just kind of see if you can get connected with that. And really, for wherever you're at too, we do have programs in other states as well. So there might be a program near you to see that. But and I want to say too to the parents, if you have a child with special needs, please register your kids in the birthday club and tell all your friends about it. Or any of you that are on here today. I mean, you're on here today because I'm guessing you have somebody with disability in your life, or kids are coming. Please pass out these free resources to these families so that it's out there for them. So any other questions that we can answer? Look at that, Carrie, 1 o'clock right on the button.
I know, look at that.
Look at that.
Well, If there are no further questions, please know that you can always reach out to us. We want to help you however we can. You can give us a call or you can email buddybreak@nathanielshope.org. We'll be sending you an email just with some follow-up information, a recording of today in case you want to refer back to it at all. But thank you for being a part of today's webinar, and we pray that you got some helpful tips and are able to minister to the VIPs that show up at your church.
Right. And we also will be sending out, if you want, we have monthly tips that we send out to churches to say, here's things to consider when you're working with kids with special needs like that. But anyway, we want to help you. So just remember, we're here on your journey. If we can do anything for you, please reach out, follow our Facebook too, because we put things up on Facebook all the time as well and have different things happening. So anyway, God bless you.
Thanks and have a great rest of the week. Bye-bye.
Bye.